Good morning, everybody. My name is Minerva Villarreal. I am the Foundation Program Coordinator with the Wilma Charitable Foundation, and I will be facilitating your session today. The topic for today is going to be Acceptance is Key to a Positive Caregiving Journey with Lucy Barylak. And let me give you a little bit of information on Lucy. Oh my goodness. Lucy Barylak received her master's degree in social work from McGill University and has dedicated her career to supporting caregivers. Lucy was the founder and longstanding manager of the Caregiver Support Center, a multi-service respite program for family caregivers. In 2003 and 2012, she received the Queen's Jubilee Award presented by the Canadian Home Care Association, awarded on the basis on her dedication in developing a national coalition to support the issues and challenges facing informal caregivers. She has published numerous articles and has presented at major conferences on her research and findings. Lucy is also a liaison supervisor at the School of Social Work at McGill University. And with that, Lucy, take it away.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Minerva. There's always a little bit of technical issues, but we can get by that. So good morning, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining us today. I have a very special program to share, which is a bit unique. You know, caregivers often feel like so much is out of their, not yet, so much is out of their control. But that is, that's always the case. It's not always the case. And I really want to look at that today and look at the program from the perspective of a positive journey. So let me start. My approach today is to offer support and acknowledge the challenges caregivers face and caring for someone living with dementia or any other physical or mental challenges. We know that the journey can often seem completely out of control. We can get caught up in focusing upon the things that are negative or difficult, and that is human nature. Sometimes it can be hard to see any light at the end of the tunnel. But today, I would like to discuss all the wonderful lights in the tunnel, not just at the end of one. In no way is it my intention to discount the hardships that caregivers go through. Even research on caregiving has more often focused on the burden of caregiving and how to cope better, and far less attention has been given to promoting the positive aspects of caregiving. Today, I want to bring our attention to the positive, share with some of the latest research studies on positive aspects of caregiving. I will share my experience as well, and I hope that if you are comfortable, some of you will share yours so that we can kind of celebrate together in this special community of caregiving that we share. By sharing, I hope that other caregivers can identify and recognize their own positive experience in their caregiving journey. What Minerva didn't tell you is that I was a caregiver for my mother for over 10 years. Just give you a little brief history, just to kind of connect with you. I'm an only child. My mother was a single mother. My mother was very hardworking. She was extremely intelligent, perceptive. She was very artistic in many ways. And one of the things that I remember most about my mom and that I carry in my heart, she was an amazing cook. And by cooking, she showed her love for others. So what I want to tell you is that we didn't have family. And so it was just the two of us when I was growing up. And unfortunately, she developed a lot of physical problems and cognitive problems as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? I always want you to feel free to ask me any question, even about my own personal journey, because I would like to share with you. Let's go to the next one. Next slide. Okay, so let's look at what is the latest research. I did a lot of work on this. I really worked very hard to kind of do a good literature review around this issue. So what the latest research is saying, that having a positive outlook as a caregiver is associated with better stress management, which links to better health outcomes for caregivers and the person you're caring for. So I will be sharing several studies that support the premise that how you go through this role will impact your outcomes and well-being both physically and mentally. Next slide, please. So in our next slide, in the research, they use the acronym PAC to talk about positive aspects of caregiving. So here's the first study that I want to talk about, and I want you to really kind of analyze it for yourself. Does it really make sense? Is it something that you're going through? So the first study I want to look is from the International, just stay on that one, from the International Journal of Nursing. It was done in 2018. The study focused upon the positive aspect of caregiving in dementia. This research looked at the findings of almost 4,000 articles on caregiving, of which incidentally only 40 articles linked to positive aspects of caregiving. So let's look at their findings. They found 4 positive areas. So what they were finding in this study, which might relate to you, that caregivers said that they had a sense of personal accomplishment. They felt good about that. And I have to say, I can relate to that. Feelings of mutual intimacy and closeness, meaning that in many areas they felt closer to the person they're caring for. Their relationship might not have been a great one to begin with, but now somehow that sort of changed. Also, an increase of family cohesion and functionality, and a sense of personal growth and purpose. So, for some caregivers, they seem to have a tremendous purpose in their life. So, the study showed the importance of having personal and social affirmation of one's caregiving role, praise and appreciation of the role, which is why peers and other family members need to validate the role of caregivers and do our utmost best to support one another in this process. What it means is that caregivers need to be acknowledged for what they are doing almost on a daily basis. And the acknowledgement really many times needs to come from the person they're caring for if they're in the capacity of actually having the ability to say, thank you so much for your help, or I appreciate what you're doing. But the other thing is you have to acknowledge it for yourself as well. Acknowledge you're doing something very, very important. Let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about the next study. So I want to present it. It was presented by Catherine Quinn, and it was in the Gerontologist in 2019. These are all recent studies. This is the first review to explore the impact on PAC on dementia caregiving and well-being comprehensively. They concluded that just being able to identify positive aspects of caregiving is associated with higher caregiving well-being, very much as the first study said as well. So for a caregiver to feel positive aspect was also associated, and this was very interesting, with lower depression symptoms and burden, better mental health, quality of life, satisfaction with life, and comprehends self-efficiency. This is really good to hear. And it is another reason why talking about this topic amongst ourselves is good for us and very encouraging. It's so important that like most things that we do, there's a positive, there's a negative. Many times people forget the positive and they focus on the negative because it's difficult. So what I'm trying to say to you is what the research is telling us is that instead of looking just at all the negative part, let's look at the positive that emerges. Next slide, please. Now, this study is a very, very interesting one. It's really a compelling study that I was very kind of a bit shocked by it. And I have to say, not only was I shocked by it, but I was kind of trying to understand it. So what it was were it focused on the increased, where most studies focus on the increased physical and mental symptoms to caregivers. And this is interesting, and the degrees life expectancy. So, a new investigation adds to the growing evidence that women who are caregivers may actually have a lower risk of death. Because a lot of research before told us that unfortunately, many caregivers die before the person they're caring for. But in this study, they're saying something totally different. So, what I want to do is, after I finish reading this study and we look at it, I want you to ask questions and I want you to make comments. Let's debate about it because, it's it's a very different study than I've ever seen. So, this new data was featured in January at 2024. So, that's just last year. It was done in the Journal of American Geriatric Society. So that's a very prominent journal that is very looked on, very favorable in research. So it looked at caregivers related information gathered from over 158,000 postmenopausal women enrolled in the landmark, and it was called Women's Health Initiative Study. So at the start of this study, 40% of women self-reported as caregivers. So to be fair, this was not exclusive to caregiving for people with dementia, but for anybody that you were caring for. Interestingly, during the average follow-up after 17 years, this study went on for 17 years. It's unbelievable. The rate of death from all causes was 9% lower in caregivers compared with non caregivers when broken down due to different causes of death, including heart disease, cancer. The mortality rates for caregivers were still significantly lower. This was true even for those who provided care intensively at least 5 times a week, despite additional stresses such as high frequency caregivers have in general. So if we move to the next slide, so let's look at what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Okay, so let's analyze this research a little bit more. So what can explain this? So are healthier people more likely to remain caregivers, or are caregivers more likely to remain healthier? Do some tasks of caregiving promote healthy living? For example, if you're caregiving and you're doing so much, maybe you're more, you're exercising in a way much more. Could be. The interpersonal benefits of caregiving may be another protective factor. Caregivers can instill a sense of usefulness and purpose, and caregivers may also be less likely to be socially isolated. Now, that's interesting because most research says that caregivers are isolated. Is it possible because if you're caregiving, you're dealing with doctors, with nurses, with day hospitals, with family, with friends, so you don't feel as isolated, possibly. So these factors can promote health longevity. However, the Mayo Clinic experts point out there's definitely needs to be further research, and providing support for caregivers remains an important and often complex issue. Research is ongoing to explore ways to best help caregivers manage their health and quality of life, especially those with limited support, resources, and obviously money plays a big role here. So I'd like to open it up to you because I was extremely taken aback by this research. I felt very positive about it. Do you have any questions or any comments? Because I have a few, but I want to listen from you first.
Okay, everybody, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you don't feel comfortable talking, you can always type your comments or your questions on the chat box. Dorsey, I see you're unmuted.
Okay, so for so long, we've heard that being a caregiver, the caregiver is more than likely to pass away than the care recipient. So this is interesting. This is real interesting.
Now we hear otherwise, but that's the interesting part of it. I'm thrilled to have seen this study, and it's recent, you know. So let's look a little bit closer about that. I gave a few, I mean, I couldn't write the whole review to you, but I took the points that they said. So do you think that caregivers are healthier than non-caregivers? Or do you think that being a caregiver, because you're doing so many things and you're more active, enhances your health? I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay, everybody, please speak up. It's very interactive, and whenever you participate, it makes the presentations even better.
I'm going to say physically, I can't call it. But mentally, I know as a caregiver, people want to be motivated to live longer, to do better by themselves, but their body may say otherwise. So
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just too interesting right here. Different.
You're absolutely right. I was fascinated by it, and I mean, it took 17 years to do this. So obviously, their data was very accurate. 158,000 women, only women. You know, that's amazing. I did.
Vonda, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Well, I've noticed that I try to go to the doctor myself more often because when I get sick, it makes more of an issue for my mom. You know, she's dependent, you know. And so
That's
I try to make sure I'm going to the doctor.
That's an amazing point that you just brought up. That was a little bit in the study, even though I didn't focus completely on it. Interesting that you said that because most caregivers and most studies don't go to see the doctor because they don't have time and they feel overwhelmed. They don't take care of themselves. So good for you. So what you're pointing out really is to say that for you, it's very important to take care of yourself so that you can continue caring. Thank you for that thought. That didn't pop into my mind.
Ed, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, I believe that just looking at my future and my life and my kids taking care, I want to take better care of myself so that my kids may not have to take care of me as quickly. And I think that we could all look back and say, oh, when I was a teenager or when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, if I would have done this, I would have taken better care of myself. I would feel better right now. So we're trying to be healthier and do things physically, mentally to be stronger so that we can be, be better so that we won't have to be taken care of as quickly and just have more opportunity to have more fun with our grandkids and so on.
Thank you, Ed, for that. And that's exactly on the journey I'm on because I have to tell, I'm really good at walking a lot, but I just started Tai Chi and I love it. So I've decided that that's exactly what I want to do with myself so that I don't become dependent on my children. I did have a question about this study, and then we're going to move on because I have a lot more, but we'll have time at the end to continue. My question was really, they said that even those who intensively were caregivers at least 5 times a week, but they didn't talk about people who live with the person. So maybe that has some sort of a connotation there, why these people seem to have a better chance of, lowering their risk death. But I'm going to look into it a little bit more. And as I do the Dear Lucy sessions, I'll come back. So that was my only thought about that. Okay, let's continue. If you have questions, comments, I love this. This is a great discussion. We'll do it a little bit later. All right, if we can go to the next slide, and I'm going to talk about this whole idea. No, it's slide 8. Yeah, perfect. Now, positive intelligence, I can't go into it. It's a wonderful movement, but you can always look it up in in the internet, okay? So what positive intelligence is, they believe that every problem or obstacle can be converted to an opportunity or a gift. What they're saying is you either accept or you convert. Okay? So, that being said, we know positivity is good for us, but the researcher, the person who has developed this concept, is called Shirzad Shamin of the Positive Intelligence Movement, offers a choice whether to accept or convert. What does this actually mean? So it comes from the belief that every problem or obstacle can be converted eventually to an opportunity or sometimes even a gift. Sometimes something horrible happens and you say, oh my God. But then when you look closer, it kind of is something positive that came out of it. So, how can we feel positive when confronted by the illness of dementia or any other ailment that the person is going through? So, what I want to tell you is I do not want to diminish the hardships. I do not want to advocate toxic positivity, as in denial of the disease. Denial is really bad. Or the denial of your own emotions that include sadness or anger or frustration. These are all normal things to feel. And I can share with you, I'm being so open with you guys today. I felt all those feelings myself at certain times of my caregiving journey, even though I was very aware. I knew how to get access to services. I did research, but when it becomes personal, it's very hard. So, how do we get there and practice what research tells us is important for caregivers' well being? I'm going to give you a word and try to remember it, and we're going to talk. Very important word. It has to start with acceptance. So, acceptance, look it up in the dictionary, but very quickly, it's the act of accepting something or someone for what or who they are without judgment and without trying to change them. It's very important to accept where you are today and to accept the person you're caring for as they are today, not as they were before. Our thoughts influence our feelings. So it makes sense that reframing negative emotions into a positive way may help us. There are negatives and challenges. This is part of the process of acceptance. It doesn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen overnight for me. Denial is one of the biggest hurdles, okay? And we need to recognize that. Many times we don't want to accept the person who they are. Many times we don't even want to accept ourselves for who we are. So acceptance is the key. It is so important to be able to accept the situation that you are presently in. Not only reflecting on what it was. That's not coming back. Okay, harsh words, but very important to keep in mind. So, what is acceptance again? Acceptance is necessary for your healing process. If you don't accept, you're never going to get better. To practice acceptance, you must acknowledge all the uncomfortable parts of yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, and your past. Maybe you never got along with this person. Maybe they weren't kind to you. You got to get over that and look at what's happening now. I'm not saying nobody should ever be abused, ever, by anybody, not the person you're caring for. That's something totally different. But accepting them for who they are now, if they're not in a position of giving you abuse. Okay. And sometimes they will if they have dementia. And we talk about it, and there's many, many sessions of how to handle that. But I do want to say that I've heard a lot from many caregivers, and they tell me it isn't the same to care for a parent or a sister or brother with dementia as a spouse or a partner. So I want to tell you, if that's your situation, I hear you. Your couple life has turned upside down, but there is the reality that your partner or your father or your mother is still there, but not the same person as they were before. Accepting your present situation can influence the rest of your caregiving journey. And I can attest to that. So the question is, what should we do when we don't feel like being positive? It's, what am I being positive about? When we're just not in the mood, or it's really, really hard. And again, and I have a whole session on acknowledging your feelings, and so do I with Dr. Elliott Sklar, and you can find all these on the website. First, it's so important to acknowledge your feeling and try to understand where those feelings are coming from. It's okay to have a bad day. We're only human. Maybe you weren't so nice that moment, okay? But what I want to say in that moment is where some self-compassion would be most appreciated. And yet it's not something many of us think about. Self-compassion could be an extremely positive habit to nurture that doesn't have to do with the smiles we associate with positivity. Self-compassion is being warm and kind to ourselves and towards others rather than feeling inadequate or self-criticize. How many times I'm sure we just criticize ourselves and feel like you're a victim. And many caregivers do feel that way, and it's okay, but acknowledge it. Give yourself permission to feel sorry for yourself, but it should be time limited. That's the key. The key is don't be so hard on yourself. Forgive yourself, give yourself permission to move forward. However, if you are not able to move on and you really, really feel depressed, anger, anxiety, and you just can't get out of it, I really would highly recommend that you get some professional help and call your doctor. But if these things, so when I say I'm giving you permission, I give myself about, I would say, between a half a day to a day to wallow in my sorrows. And I'll do whatever it is, I'll let it out. But it's time limited for me. And that's what I would like caregivers to be able to do for themselves. So at this point, I want to share with you when was my turning point in my caregiving journey, where I was able to see the positive aspects of caregiving for my mother. And I told you a little bit about her. And you could very well imagine being an only child and her being a single mother. We were just, we were glued together. It happened when I saw my mother smile when I walked through the door one day. It really hit me, even though I saw her all the time. Don't ask me why this particular time, but that's what happened. I really truly realized that I was the one person that was in a position to give her the best life, given the fact that she had many physical and cognitive challenges. However, before I could see the positive side of caregiving, I had to accept my mother for who she was at that time. She wasn't able to cook anymore. She forgot a lot. Many times, she looked at me and I was wondering, does she even know who I am? Before, I used to be so angry, so upset. Why her? Why me? She doesn't deserve this. But then when I finally got to that point and said, well, this is who she is now. What am I going to do with this? How am I going to treat it? Am I going to be angry or am I going to accept it? I decided to accept it. And when I did, I felt a sense of positivity that I was able to connect with her and enjoy special moments. The relationship changed for sure, but it changed more in a positive way because my expectation changed. I didn't expect very much anymore of her. I was happy to care for her as she had cared for me in a way. And a lot of my anger, my frustration, my why her, why me, I have to tell you, disappeared. I really, really felt that way. And the moments that I did share with her were meaningful because those emotions were gone and I just stayed in the moment, whatever it was. Whether it was, she loved having her nails done. I always talk about this. I would bring different colors. She would choose them. We would reminisce about the past. And whenever I truly miss her, she's no longer with us. But I remember those moments. They were really special to me. So later on, I hope that you can share some of those moments with us as well. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. I want to talk about another study, and this was interesting for me. I love doing the lit review because I learned a lot myself. So there was a study in 2022 that was published in Aging and Public Health looking at caregivers of people with dementia and positive coping skills. So I want to share some of these concrete tips that they found to be helpful. So what they said is, and it's nothing, I mean, I'm talking about it all the time, but it's very, very concrete. And what they're saying is that noticing positive events, really noticing, being aware of the good things in your life, like getting up in the morning and really saying, what's going on? What's good in my life? As an antidote to narrowly focusing on the negative. We can do this by reframing our events, focusing on positive events. For example, this is a way of extending and savoring your good feelings, as I savor them when I think of polishing my mother's nails. It makes me feel good. It could be about a great book you read. It could be about a wonderful walk you took, a show you saw, or a wonderful moment with the person you're caring for. And maybe that wonderful moment was just, smiling at them or hugging them and them hugging you back. But what's important is to write it down or to recall the event and look at it. So I would highly recommend journaling. Put those thoughts down. So when you feel really down and go back and read it, and it will hopefully give you a bit of a lift. Now you can go to the next slide. I'm sorry, Minerva, because I think it's all there. Sorry about that. And then there's the whole idea of mindfulness, being aware, and it's all the same thing, but it looks at it a little bit differently. Being aware of the present moment, accepting the reality of the now. This concept can be a bit elusive. How does one stay in the present and be mindful as a caregiver? Seriously, there's so many thoughts turning around it used to turn in my head. What do we have to do next? What is around the corner? Quieting our minds and practicing mindfulness is easier said than done, but it does take practice, and I would highly recommend that. The other thing is noting your personal strength. Now, how many of you have turned around and said, recognizing the personal resources you have internally inside you and from the outside help as well, as an antidote to feeling helpless? You have strength. Otherwise you could not be in this room. I can tell you that right now. I don't even know any of you. Some of you I do know. You are strong. Ask yourself, what are yours? Recognize them. Are you exceptionally patient? Are you caring? Are you organized? Are you capable? Acknowledge it. These are wonderful things to have. Not doing it all alone and letting people support you shows great strength. But we know very well from research and from my own practice that caregivers don't like to ask for help. Either they think, I don't want to burden people, or nobody can do the job as I can. I am telling you that allowing others to help you does take strength. Gaining knowledge and education about the disease is very important, very much what you're doing today. We're talking and we're learning. Ask yourself, what are your strengths? What strengths are coming out of your caregiving? And that's an education. That's what the research says, that you're learning something new about yourself. By caregiving, I have to tell you very honestly, what I learned about myself, I thought I was a patient person, but I learned that I was more than just a patient person. I had a lot of patience, and that made me feel good about myself. The other thing is not doing it all alone and letting people support you shows great strength again. Now, setting attainable goals for yourself, very big, very important, so you can feel good when you accomplish them. For example, if you have a bad day and it's supposed to be shower day or whatever, don't do it. Don't even go there. Do a sponge bath. Don't push yourself. You're not going to attain it. If you're tired and you're not feeling good, everything's going to annoy you and you're not going to accomplish it. Another example is decide to set limits. Say no without feeling guilty. Can be a challenging but dual goal with practice. Once you say it once, it does get easier. You have to learn to set limits. You have to learn to say no. And of course, focus on the good things. Practice gratitude, which we talked about. Open yourself to humor instead of choosing the latest Netflix drama. Choose a comedy and let yourself laugh out loud. You know, laughing is amazing. It just, all these wonderful hormones in our bodies just come out. Now, this one I want to emphasize. This is an important one. Spend time with positive people. Negativity is contagious. It really is. As positivity energy is. Choose your company wisely. So if you're talking to a friend or a family member that's always negative, that's not going to help you. So I really want you to think about that. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so let's read it. Practice makes progress. We may not be able to create perfect, wonderful days for people with dementia or Alzheimer's or any other disease, but we can create perfectly wonderful moments. Write down one happy moment with your care recipient each day or routinely. So I hope that when I finish my presentation, you can tell me about a moment or time where things really went well. You know, we know that not everything is going to be a walk in the park, but it's so important to try to live in the moment. When people have short-term memory loss, their lives are made up of moments. We are not able to create perfectly wonderful days for people with dementia or Alzheimer's or any other form, but we can create perfectly wonderful moments, as I did with my mother, with nails and other things. She loved music. All I had to do is put on some music that she could relate to. We could dance together, we could sing together. And those were precious moments for her, I know. The moments that put it, that put a smile on a person's face and a twinkle in their eyes. 5 minutes later, they will not remember what we did or said, but the feeling that was left them, probably will linger. It's very hard. I did a study once. They wanted to see if having people coming with dementia coming to an activity, does it increase their happiness? It's very hard to measure that. So what we came up with afterwards in our research, even if for a split second that person smiled, was worth everything. So it's something to think about. So the same is true for us also. We can't always, we want to be happy. You can't be happy all the time. That's unattainable. But claiming joy is a survival tactic, in a way. It doesn't mean we're in a constant state of happiness. We can take delight or pleasure in something, even if the feeling is brief. Appreciating the instant can be a force for survival. Think about each moment of joy as a driving force, the motivation that drives you to endure and overcome challenges. Consider joyful moments as momentum. Practice makes progress, but not perfect. So I hope you're kind of taking it all in. I'm looking at my time and it's perfect. Let's go to the next slide because I'm very excited to hear from you. So now let's have a positive conversation. Let's look at some of the things you are grateful for as a caregiver, and let's have a conversation about the positive aspects of caregiving if you believe so. And if you don't, it's perfectly fine. So let's start. I'm waiting. Tell me what you think.
Okay, I know from earlier Shane had posted in the chat. This is very interesting. I definitely need to hear more research on it. Being a caregiver, I feel like I do take better care of myself because I always think, put on my oxygen mask first.
Oh, love that. That's Dr. Jamie Heisman. He has a book about putting your oxygen first. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that is such an important thing to keep in mind because I think, Wanda, you said that going to the doctor is important to you because you need to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to continue caring for the person that you want to continue being a caregiver for. So we keep repeating it over and over in all our podcasts. Take care of your. Thank you for sharing that. Was there anything else?
Donnie, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, I was very intrigued on the acceptance part that was talking about. It was talking about do not be overcome. The necessary of healing. The acceptance is a necessary of healing process. A lot of times my father was going through these situations with his Alzheimer, and sometimes I get kind of frustrated. But I have to look back at the fact that when I couldn't take care of myself, he took care of me, and that's when I think back to some positive moments and some positive times when we were riding around in the vehicle, and one of those oldies and goodies might come on, and he would remember that, and that would be inspirational. It will make me feel good by knowing that he's responding to to what's going on. He knows at that particular time what's going on. It make me feel better. Make me feel like I'm doing something positive, and that's basically what I wanted to say this morning.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. You don't know how important what you're saying is to some people. And I want to tell you, and I want to emphasize this, if you don't accept your situation, you will not heal because it's impossible. Because you're always going to wonder, you're going to go back to the past and what it was, and you're going to feel victimized. So acceptance is the only way to start the healing process, to be able to continue and to be able to find the joy. And by accepting, like in the reality, if someone has got dementia and they can no longer even feed themselves, you have to accept that. Why be angry about it? So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
I would like to say my sister sent an Instagram clip yesterday of talking about this, about accepting, because until you accept the situation of the person and realize they're not going to change, the powers in you to accept it or continue holding on to the grudge or the anger, you won't be able to move forward or start realizing the happy around you because of it. And I thought that was very interesting that now we're talking about this here.
Well, nothing only happens, I believe in the sense that there is a force, whether you are spiritual, whether you are, you're a religious person, sometimes things don't just happen just because. Sometimes things are meant to happen. And, maybe we were meant to be together today and talk about this. And hopefully, I'm hoping that even if one of you feels that that burden that you feel is a little bit eliminated because there is some control that you can take. That's when we get so depressed and when we feel like we have no choices. But we do have choice. And one of the choices is accepting and looking at it in a different perspective. How should I be behaving? What should I accept? I'm not going to change this person. They're not well. It's the disease. It's not them. That's what's happening here. And I loved what you said. I hope I'm pronouncing your name. Is it Downdy? Am I saying it right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I loved what you said. Those joyful moments that you found with your dad when he did remember.
Vonda, I see you're unmuted. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say the negativity that you talked about. If you're around negative people, it can bring you down, and it does. I've learned through speaking with Miss Dorsey and other people in our group that I have to be willing to set a boundary. I can't talk to people that when mom's having a bad day and I have 20 people calling me, how's she doing? Um, I've learned to put those boundaries up. One person call me, only tell one person. You call your sister and ask her. You call Aunt Karen, call her. Because when mom's having a bad day, having everybody call me and giving me advice, do this, do this, do I can't do that. I'm worried about her, not them. And, being given that permission to be able to say, no, not today. Basically saying, Satan, get thee behind me. I don't need anything else on my shoulders some days. Some days, it's all I can do to hold me up. And because there's some days she looks at me and she's like, why me? And, I'm having to help her accept what she's going through. And some days that's hard for her. And to be that strength, to be able to get that negative, I do not need negative people around me when she's having a bad day because she needs me. And if I'm having to deal with their negative, I can't deal with her positive. You can't see the good things that she's doing that day if everybody's worried about the day she's having. You know, um, I'm just one of those. I'm grateful for this group that we've got because I am learning that it's okay to have boundaries and it's okay to say I'm having a bad day. I mean, I know I went and talked to Miss Dorsey last month, and it was just a really awful day. It'd been a really bad month almost. And it's nice to be able to say it's going to be okay. We all have bad days, but we also have good days. Remember those good days.
Exactly. You know, it's a process. It really is a process. It's not easy to change our way of looking at things. It's not easy at all. And we have to find the tools. And Wanda, you found the tools. And I hope each and every one of you finds the tools because I had to find my tools. Look, I was working in a home care department in a research center with lots of people that knew exactly they thought they knew exactly what I was going through. Even I thought I knew what I was going through until I became a caregiver. I didn't really know what caregivers were going through until I became one. Okay, so I found the skills that I needed to be able. And one of the most important ones, and that was the hardest one for me, was to set limits. I was at my mom's place. I would have loved her to come live with me, but my youngest daughter was totally asthmatic. And God bless my mom, she smoked a pack of cigarettes a day, if not more. And I couldn't take that away from her. There was no way. So I would be there constantly. And I was working, cooking, shopping, ridiculous. I had to set limits. But you know what? Once I did, that were okay for me to not be there every day, it was fine. I let others take over. And they maybe didn't do the same thing that I did as well as I thought I did, but that was okay. Nobody put her at risk. Find whatever it is that you need to be able to feel a little bit more positive and not so overwhelmed. Um, and by all means, continue your journey. However, if the journey becomes too difficult, and this is a different session altogether, I would give you permission to look at different ways of handling this situation. And maybe it means that it's too much for both of you to be where you are. So I'm looking at the time. We have some more time, so go ahead, Minerva.
Okay, Carolyn and Phyllis, I see you're both unmuted, but let me read this that came in from Karen in the chat. I find that I accept mom for who she is today rather than dwelling on how much she has changed. Helps me stay flexible and keep my expectation low.
Great. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Carolyn, go ahead.
I was just going to speak on acceptance and the boundaries because as an ordained minister, my husband and I, we have to deal with the family always wanting to chime in, but not wanting to do anything to help. I had to learn how to cut his hair and all those things. And mind you, he's 6'3" and I'm miniature. And so I have to take care of myself because I have health issues also. But doing things out in the community is what helps me. But what I do for him, I accept him as he is today because he was also a social worker and very extroverted. But when he's worried about when he has his moments and he's worried about who's not coming by or who's not calling, because I keep a home phone just for him. So I go through the list of who all loves you. And then we get to, and wifey loves you. And then I say, and who loves you most of all? And he says, God, Jesus loves me. And I keep him in that realm. And I go through that process with him quite often so that he's anchored in knowing that the Lord loves him no matter what. So he keeps himself knowing that Jesus, he keeps that focus. So he's knowing that he's not alone. And he knows that wifey loves him, because just like with me sitting here, he peeps his head out of that bedroom just to know that I'm here, to have eyes on me, to know that he's secure, he's safe, and things of that nature. And then with that family, like what you said, I've gone to Dorsey. You know, that's our outlet here in Jonesboro. We go to Dorsey and we vent. You know, we had to keep this family at bay because they do torment us, and we have to learn to use our voice. And as you can tell, I have a voice. Get back. And like you said, get back, say, you're not coming up here doing anything. You're not trying to help me cut this hair. I had to learn. I was cutting bald spots. So yes, keep them where they belong. That's all I'm gonna say.
Karen, you touched my heart. You really touched my heart by the skill that you learned how to deal with the situation and give your husband peace of mind and a sense of that he's not alone. And these are I'm getting a little emotional because it's so difficult. And to think of each one of you, each one of us, I should say, as I said before, whether you're spiritual, whether you're religious, believing and having hope. Hope is so important to have.
Hope, hope.
Hope
And
is
education does not mean anything when you're a caregiver.
yeah.
It's out the window.
That's very true. Phyllis, I see that you're still unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just wanted to say that these sessions have really, truly helped me. I've never dealt with anyone that has dementia. Of course, my mom does. She have a lot of good days and some bad days. But the thing of it is, I have accepted the position that she's in now, even though it's still hard to see her go through what she goes through, and I can only be here to help her. My sister has stepped in and she helps out more now, and I had to learn to just let her do her part the way that she wants to do it, because it's not going to be like I want it done. But I know that's her mother as well as she is mine, and she's going to take care of her. So when she's doing that, it is really hard sometimes for me to just sit back and let her do, because I be wanting to say, well, why are you doing this? Or she don't like that, or she don't like it that way. But I have to let her take care of her way, and that's my time to get me some rest. But like I say, these sessions have truly helped me to deal with the situation that I'm in.
Well, I can say that what you just said, I guarantee you, has helped someone in our audience today, because that's so true. I had the same issues. Nobody can take care of my mom the way I do.
Really?
Yeah, and I had to accept it. I'm lucky enough to find someone that was able to be with her when I was not. And just a very quick, interesting story. My mother loved to go to casino. Does anybody else like to go to casinos? I don't. I don't. So you know what? This private caregiver loved to go to casinos, so that's what they did, and I let her go. They would play on the slot for a cent, because we still have cents in Canada at that time. We don't anymore. And she had a good time, and I accepted it. That's it. Okay, so we're getting to the top of the hour. I don't know if there's anybody else. Maybe one last question, and I know Minerva has a lot to tell you as well.
Angela, I believe you unmuted yourself first. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me? I'm
You're a
having
little bit
some.
muffled.
Can you hear? Okay. I'll
It's
try to
it's
do it
hard
through
to
that.
hear you. It's a little bit muted.
Okay, is this better? Maybe this is better?
No, it's
Uh,
happening.
I'll get in the car, and I'm sorry, if you want to go to someone else, I understand.
I'm
That's totally fine. We can do that. Ray, go ahead.
I unmuted just to say I understand. I enjoyed what little I did see and hear and stuff. I'm going through the same situation with my mom, in a sense that like I got a sister that came in yesterday and she been on vacation for 3 weeks. But when we called her in to help take care of mom, she said she only can be there for 3 days. And I didn't understand that, but I learned to accept that because I do what I do, and I guess she do what she do, and I just have to leave it at that because it would cause more confusion if I did try to say, well, you should do this, you should do that, but I don't do that no more. I do what I do and let them do what they do. And if
that is
and,
sorry. That is so important, Ray, what you're saying. It's also being able to accept the limitations of other people in your life, especially family.
yes, yes. And so I just and don't stress myself out.
That's good. That is really good. Yeah, that's it. You know, we could stay angry at our family members, and we have a right to be angry if there's other siblings and they don't. I didn't have that problem, was an only child, but I could very well understand what it must be like. There's resentment, like, why are they not? But that's not going to get you anywhere.
No.
Accept it. They're not going to do it. That's it. That's all there is to it. Putting guilt on them is not going to work. So you have a choice. You have a choice to accept, to move forward, and to look at all the little things that come on. All right, Minerva, I'm leaving it in your hands because I know that we're almost at the top of the hour.
Uh, yes, I started the poll, so please fill that out. That's how we know what your thoughts are on the presentation, and it lets us know what you would like to hear in the future. As far as the coming teleconnection sessions we have coming up on Monday, we have polypharmacy and common drug interactions in older adults. That is sponsored by North Central Texas Caregiver Teleconnection Program. And then after that, we have on Tuesday, July 22nd, how caregivers can stop arguing about money. And that's going to be with Barry Jacobs. And he's one of our longtime presenters as well, like Lucy. And our final one for the month is going to be on Wednesday, July 30th. And that's going to be the Heart of Care Partnering, 10 Values to Ground and Guide Us with Jennifer Carson. And I am aware of the time. Lucy, do you want to give any final thoughts before we end this presentation?
I want to thank you all for joining me today, and I want to thank you also because I've learned a lot from you today as well. And let's keep up, let's look at the positive aspects of our lives. And when you don't feel so positive, it's okay. Give yourself permission, but keep it time limited. I thank you so much for all that you do, and God bless you all, and have a good day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and we will see you on the next presentation. Bye-bye for now.
See, so nice to see you.